Short time ago, I spoke with South Carolina Senator and 2024 presidential candidate Tim Scott. Senator, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you. It's always good to be back with you.
And just back from Iowa.
Absolutely. We're on the campaign trail having a lot of fun. This is an amazing country. We should all be very proud to be Americans.
All right. Well, I look forward to maybe interviewing you in Iowa around the caucus, so I'll rope you into it right now. All right. I want to talk about the border.
Yes.
Because Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was just quoted as saying, there is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers. This despite the fact that in January 2021, Biden administration declared the end of a national emergency at the border.
Unbelievable. Here's what we're learning. It's not the deaths of 70,000 Americans in the last 12 months because of fentanyl that's motivating President Biden. It's when blue state governors call out and say, you're not doing your job. He is more concerned with the blue state governors on this really important, dangerous issue of an insecure, unsafe, and wide open border than he is of the evidence that has devastated American families in nearly every single county in our country. It's unbelievable.
It's not just the governors. Now a couple mayors are actually traveling to the border. But I guess for me, is that, look, you can be a Republican or a Democrat on this whole border thing. But for the secretary to suddenly decide that the borders are insecure, when night after night on every cable news network, they show video of people coming up to the border and crossing it. And I'm thinking to myself, does Mayorkas think we're all fools?
He must, because if you think about this, they were literally just 3 weeks ago selling off the construction material to finish the wall for pennies on the dollar. What they've decided is a political calculus for 2024 and to appease not the American people, but their blue state governors.
Well, how does he keep his job? And what do you say about the president? Because, I mean, this is the president's secretary.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I say about the president, let's fire Joe Biden and hire Tim Scott. Now, there's a reason why I'm running. I'm running because I know America deserves better. The devastation and the travesty of justice that is happening because of an open, insecure southern border is measured in the lives of friends of mine who's lost their kids. A guy named Alan Shaw, the former business school dean of College of Charleston in Charleston.
Well, okay, that's all right. So we've got a couple issues here. One is crossing the border and having basically chaos, and apparently Secretary Mayorkas is just discovering this today.
Unbelievable.
But the other is fentanyl, which is getting through the border. Even if we seal the border, we're still going to get fentanyl into this country. That is being produced by cartels. And so what would you do if you're president about those cartels? Would you send anyone into Mexico? Because the drugs are getting back in here.
Well, three really important things that I'd say I would do as your next president. Number one, we should not only secure the southern border with a wall, but we should use the available military-grade technology to surveil the border. That would cost us about $5 billion. Number two, we should also sign into law my legislation that freezes the assets and sanctions the accounts of the Mexican cartels that have a net worth over $20 billion. I just wrote that bill.
Why over $20 billion? Why not under $20 billion?
Well, no.
I mean,
no. That's their net worth. So we would freeze all their assets, all their accounts. My point is that these Mexican cartels have accumulated a net worth in excess of $20 billion. And the third thing we should do is make sure that they cease to exist. With or without the help of the Mexican government, we must save 70,000 American lives.
Would you send a military force? I know it's hugely controversial, but we sent people into Afghanistan when 3,000 Americans were killed on World Trade Center on 9/11. We have 75,000 every year on fentanyl. The Mexican government has been unable to... Unwilling or unable.
Yes.
So do you consider this, I hate to use the word because it sounds so extreme, but almost an act of war, this fentanyl coming and killing Americans, and what would you do?
Use the full weight of the office of the president to get the result of the Mexican cartel not killing another American life.
All right. Is that military force?
It is the entire power of the American government and the presidential office. You say that. I
take that to mean that.
We should say nothing's off the table, but never tell your adversary what you're going to do so they can prepare for it. We have technology from drones, we have resources. There are a number of ways that we eliminate the threat to the American people. But the last thing I would do as President of the United States is to have that conversation on TV. I would just do what was necessary to save American lives.
Right. Before you became a U.S. Senator, you were in the House of Representatives.
Indeed. If
you become president, you're going to be the leader of the Republican Party. Your former job as a member of the House of Representatives, it seems like that House is in chaos right now.
It is.
How, if you're president of the United States, how are you going to lead? Because you've got two almost very distinctive factions within the House of Representatives, and with such a narrow margin, there's a chance nothing will get done, and we'll continue just to watch this chaos.
Well, one thing is for certain, as the next president of the United States, I would create a red wave where we would win back the majority in the Senate, we would expand our majority in the House, and we would eliminate the ability for 4 to 7 people to dictate the vast majority of the House. Listen, that's one of the problems that we have. We have to understand that the road to socialism runs right through a divided Republican Party, and when 4% of the body dictates to the 96%, that's a problem. That problem is solved by winning elections. It's caused by losing elections, and we must have a person at the top of the ticket that can create a red wave. I'm your guy to make sure we expand the majorities.
Would you expel from the Republican conference either Matt Gaetz or any of the other 7 who voted to change speakers?
I would give the Speaker of the House the margin to make that decision.
So you changed the motion to vacate?
Well, listen, one of the challenges that we saw at the beginning of this year is when Kevin McCarthy had to make a deal in order to become Speaker, which gave not a minority, but 7 people, 4%, the power to overthrow the will of the vast majority of the Republican members of Congress. I would say, as President of the United States, I'm not going to jump into that hotbed. What I would do is create the type of majority where it would eliminate the possibility of a few rogue members making that decision. And most importantly, instead of us being able to have a longer conversation about the southern border, it's the quagmire pit of the House. Instead of us talking about Bidenomics and the thousands of dollars that the average family has lost, it's the controversy that continues to breathe because of the dysfunction in the House of Representatives today. Our people, the American people, deserve a better path forward.
All right. You and I met a number of years ago.
Yes.
A number of years ago. And one of the topics that we first discussed was something that you were talking about with me, and you're actually the architect of, at least I think so, these opportunity zones to go into and create investments in these neighborhoods where there had not been able to attract investments before. It's now been about 10 years since you came up with the idea, 5 or 6 years since it was passed. Can you give me an update as to the success of these opportunity zones? Because our cities are falling apart, our urban areas.
Yeah, one of the bright spots of the challenges that we're seeing in big cities is the development of my opportunity zones. We've seen about $75 billion, all private sector dollars, descend upon the poorest zip codes in America, leading to a 20% increase in property values, less than a 5% gentrification, and an 8% increase in wages. This is one of the most powerful forces for good in fighting poverty in a way that even $7 trillion of the world poverty did not.
You know, it seems like it's. I've seen the success of it,
yes.
But now we see things like in San Francisco. I think they're closing down 7 Starbucks. They're rolling out of these urban areas.
Absolutely, of course. Well, here's what you can't do. You cannot have a lawless environment that is chaotic and attract any resources in the private sector. And when you think about the fact that the mayor of Chicago says he's going to figure out how to start opening up grocery stores, that is only reinforcing the failure of leadership in blue cities, the big ones, where the people are devastated. I'll be in Chicago soon talking about why it is that the LBJ's Great Society devastated poor communities, and specifically poor minority communities, where we have now seen the blue cities and the progressive proposition. It is simply a valueless, faithless, fatherless America, and the devastation of socialism is measured in unemployment, high crime, and hope deferred, it makes the heart sick.
Senator, thank you for joining me, and good luck, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.